Don't tear invisible. Why you stolen the court? I'm watching this Christian.
This is a government vehicle. It is not stolen.
I'm not stopping that again. I'm not stopping out.
I'm not stopping now.
Come on, boy, drive that.
You're on badge displayed. You haven't called dispatch.
That's it. Open this door. Snatch a handle, and you commit a federal felony.
We are federal agents. Police are on the way. Back away.
The traffic stop begins the way thousands do every day in the United States. Emergency lights appear behind a moving vehicle. The signal is unambiguous. Pull over. Stop. Comply. According to the footage, a black couple does exactly that. The car slows. It moves to the shoulder. The engine idles. Nothing about the moment suggests resistance, urgency, or threat. The individuals who initiated the stop present themselves as police. Their vehicles display emergency lighting. Their posture mirrors law enforcement procedure. Their commands are short and rehearsed. To anyone watching from a distance, the scene would register as routine. What the people giving those commands do not know is that the two occupants inside the stopped vehicle are not ordinary motorists. According to official records later reviewed, both individuals are federal agents. Their professional lives have involved evaluating the legality of stops, determining when a detention crosses constitutional limits, and recognizing the precise moment when authority becomes unlawful. That experience is not announced. It is not displayed. It exists quietly inside the car. This is the first authority reversal. The people asserting power do not have it. The people being ordered to submit understand exactly how power is supposed to work. From the opening seconds, the legal imbalance is already forming. A traffic stop requires lawful authority. It requires a legitimate basis. It requires an officer who is empowered by statute to initiate it. None of those elements are confirmed on camera. The individuals outside the vehicle proceed anyway. This decision matters. From this point forward, the legal margin narrowed. The couple remains calm. According to the footage, their movements are controlled, their responses are measured, they do not escalate, they do not challenge verbally, they do not attempt to flee. Their behavior aligns with what federal training emphasizes in ambiguous encounters: observe, preserve evidence, avoid unnecessary confrontation. The people posing as officers move closer, their commands become more specific. The stop continues instead of ending. At this stage, reversal was still possible. The stop could have been terminated. It was not. What makes this moment structurally different from countless other recorded stops is not tone or volume, it is knowledge. Inside the vehicle sit two people trained to recognize unlawful detention. Outside stand individuals unknowingly committing it. Each second the stop continues, the exposure grows. Impersonating law enforcement is not a procedural error. It is a criminal act. Using that impersonation to detain others escalates it further. Doing so against federal agents introduces consequences that extend far beyond the roadside. The footage does not yet reveal those consequences. It does not announce charges. It does not name statutes. It simply records a decision being repeated. Continue. This was another chance to stop. It wasn't taken. By the time the interaction reaches its next phase, the stop is no longer just a confrontation. It is evidence. And everything that follows will be built on what was captured here, frame by frame, command by command. The legitimacy of the people inside the vehicle is established before a single word is spoken. According to the footage, the car was traveling normally. There is no visible erratic movement, no sudden acceleration, no attempt to evade. When the emergency lights activate, the response is immediate and compliant. The vehicle signals, slows, and pulls to the side of the road. The stop begins within the boundaries of expected civilian conduct. Inside the car, the couple remains seated. Their hands stay visible. Their posture is controlled. Nothing in their behavior introduces risk. Nothing invites escalation. This matters because legality does not hinge on who a person is. It hinges on what they do. And at this stage, what they are doing is exactly what the law expects. Outside the vehicle, the individuals presenting themselves as police continue the encounter. Their commands are framed as lawful orders. Their proximity tightens. The stop extends beyond its initial moment. The legitimacy gap begins to form here. What the couple understands about lawful authority does not match what is being asserted against them. Under the Fourth Amendment, a traffic stop is a seizure. It must be justified at its inception and reasonably related in scope to the circumstances that warranted it. According to the footage, no lawful basis is stated on camera. No violation is articulated. The stop persists regardless. This is a decision point. From this point forward, the legal margin narrowed. The couple responds without provocation. Their answers are short. Their tone remains neutral. They do not consent to searches. They do not create confrontation. They behave as individuals trained to preserve clarity in ambiguous encounters. That training does not come from fear. It comes from experience. The people outside the vehicle increase their control of space. They reposition. They angle themselves closer to the doors. Commands become more directive. Each adjustment signals an assumption of authority that has not been established. At this stage, reversal was still possible. The encounter could have ended. It did not. The legitimacy gap widens. On one side are two people whose professional responsibilities have included evaluating the constitutional sufficiency of stops like this one. On the other are individuals relying on performance rather than lawful empowerment. The camera captures the imbalance without commentary. Another decision is made. The stop continues. From a legal standpoint, this matters because duration transforms suspicion into detention. The longer a stop extends without justification, the weaker its constitutional footing becomes. According to the footage, time passes without clarification. The individuals posing as police do not disengage. They proceed as if authority is assumed. This was another chance to stop. It wasn't taken. The couple's conduct remains consistent. They do not test boundaries. They do not escalate verbally. They do not reveal their professional status. That choice is deliberate. Federal training emphasizes that identity does not cure illegality. Evidence does. Cameras do. The stop now functions as a recording device rather than a law enforcement action. Every command, every pause, every step closer to the vehicle adds another layer of documentation. Another decision point arrives. The individuals outside the vehicle issue further instructions. The scope of the stop expands. The legal exposure grows. From this point forward, the legal margin narrowed again. The legitimacy gap is now structural. It is no longer about perception. It is about authority versus appearance. The couple understands the distinction. The people confronting them do not appear to. The camera continues to record. There is no visible threat, no justification offered, no lawful basis articulated. The stop exists on momentum alone. At this stage, reversal was still possible. The encounter could have ended without consequence. It did not. Each second that passes transforms the situation. What began as an attempted assertion of control becomes potential evidence of impersonation. The act of pulling a vehicle over while falsely presenting as police is not a procedural misstep. It is a crime. Continuing that act compounds it. The couple remains composed. Their compliance is not submission. It is preservation. According to the footage, they are not passive. They are observant. They are documenting. Another decision is made by the individuals outside the vehicle. They do not disengage. They press forward. This decision removed another lawful exit. By now, the legitimacy of the couple is no longer in question. Their conduct has been lawful from the outset. Their presence on the road was lawful. Their response to the stop was lawful. Their restraint during the encounter is lawful. The only unresolved element is the authority of those confronting them. The camera does not resolve that question yet. It simply records the imbalance growing wider with every choice made outside the vehicle. What follows will no longer be about compliance. It will be about consequences that extend beyond the roadside. What the footage captures next is not just an interaction between individuals, but the absence of a legitimate system behind the authority being asserted. There is no verified department name announced on camera. No badge number is stated. No dispatcher voice is heard confirming the stop. The structure that normally surrounds lawful policing is missing. Instead, the individuals posing as officers rely on imitation. Their language mirrors law enforcement phrasing. Their spacing reflects training they have observed elsewhere. Their confidence appears practiced. But procedure without authorization is not authority. It is performance. This distinction matters legally. Lawful policing is not defined by appearance or tone. It is defined by statutory power, sworn status, and accountability to a real department. According to the footage, none of those anchors are established here. This is another decision point. From this point forward, the legal margin narrowed. In legitimate law enforcement encounters, escalation is constrained by supervision. Radios connect officers to dispatch. Supervisors can intervene. Policies impose limits. None of those controls are visible here. The people outside the vehicle operate in isolation, unchecked by any chain of command. That isolation creates risk. Without oversight, there is no corrective mechanism. Mistakes are not corrected. Unlawful actions are not interrupted. The stop continues because nothing exists to stop it. At this stage, reversal was still possible. The individuals could have disengaged. They did not. The couple inside the vehicle continues to behave in a way that reflects awareness of this absence. According to the footage, they do not argue about policy. They do not demand supervisors. They do not attempt to expose the impersonation. Their restraint preserves the integrity of what is being recorded. Another decision is made outside the vehicle. The individuals double down on their asserted authority. Their commands persist. Their positioning remains close. The stop is prolonged without justification. This decision removed another lawful exit. From a systems perspective, impersonation operates differently than misconduct within a real department. There is no internal affairs division to intervene mid-incident. No body-worn camera policy to constrain behavior. No immediate accountability loop. That absence increases the severity of each choice made. The footage documents this progression quietly. There is no shouting, no physical struggle, just continuation. Another decision point arrives. The stop does not end. From this point forward, the legal margin narrowed again. In legitimate policing, hesitation often triggers review. Here, hesitation produces escalation. The longer the stop lasts, the more the impersonation solidifies into an evidentiary record. Each command reinforces the false assertion of power. The couple remains inside the vehicle. Their posture does not change. Their responses remain controlled. According to official records later reviewed, both individuals are trained to recognize when an encounter crosses from uncertainty into illegality. That threshold has already been crossed. At this stage, reversal was still possible. It was not taken. The absence of a real department means that when this encounter ends, it will not be resolved administratively. There will be no counseling memo, no retraining session. The only remaining pathway is external investigation. The camera continues to record. The roadside setting remains unchanged. Traffic passes. Time accumulates. The impersonation persists. This was another chance to stop. It wasn't taken. By now, the encounter is no longer ambiguous. It is structurally unlawful. The authority being asserted has no foundation. The individuals asserting it do not appear to recognize the depth of their exposure. What they do not know is that the people they have stopped understand exactly how this will be reviewed. They understand how footage is evaluated. They understand how impersonation cases are built. They understand that once evidence exists, control shifts away from the roadside entirely. The stop continues anyway. What follows will no longer depend on what anyone says. It will depend on what has already been captured. The escalation does not arrive as a single dramatic act. It unfolds through repetition. According to the footage, the individuals posing as police maintain their positions beside the vehicle. They do not retreat. They do not clarify authority. They proceed as though legitimacy has already been established. This choice reshapes the encounter. A traffic stop that might have ended quietly now continues on momentum alone. Each additional instruction extends the seizure. Each moment of proximity deepens the impersonation. From this point forward, the legal margin narrowed. The couple remains inside the car. Their movements are minimal. Their voices remain steady. There is no visible attempt to provoke or expose. Their restraint preserves the clarity of the record. In encounters like this, escalation is often mutual. Here, it is not. Outside the vehicle, the individuals increase their control of space. They shift their stance. They angle their bodies toward the doors. These movements are small, but they are deliberate. In lawful policing, such positioning is justified by authority and safety. Here, it is unsupported. This is another decision point. At this stage, reversal was still possible. The stop could have been terminated without further consequence. It was not. The footage captures the widening gap between asserted power and actual authority. Commands are repeated. The stop is prolonged. No lawful basis is stated. No identification is produced. The encounter drifts further from legality with each passing second. Another decision is made. The individuals outside the vehicle do not disengage. This decision removed another lawful exit. The escalation remains controlled, but it is unmistakable. The stop is no longer a question. It is an imposition. The couple's compliance continues, but compliance does not validate unlawful authority. It simply documents it. According to the footage, the environment remains calm. There are no sudden movements, no raised voices. The absence of chaos does not mitigate the violation. It clarifies it. From this point forward, the legal margin narrowed again. In lawful stops, escalation is constrained by justification. Here, escalation exists without it. The impersonation becomes more pronounced not through aggression, but through persistence. Another decision point arrives. The individuals posing as police issue further instructions. The scope of the stop expands incrementally. Each expansion increases exposure under federal law. This was another chance to stop. It wasn't taken. The couple's posture does not change. Their responses remain measured. They do not assert their federal status. They allow the encounter to continue as recorded. This choice is strategic. Disclosure would not retroactively legitimize the stop. Evidence will. The camera captures the imbalance with precision. The roadside setting remains unchanged. Traffic moves past. Time accumulates. Authority quietly shifts away from the individuals outside the vehicle and toward the record being created. Another decision is made. The stop continues. At this stage, reversal was still possible. It was not taken. The escalation reaches a threshold where intent no longer matters. Impersonation does not require hostility. It requires representation. That representation has been repeated, sustained, and recorded. From this point forward, the legal margin narrowed to its minimum. The footage now documents a completed act rather than an unfolding one. The authority asserted has been exercised. The detention has occurred. The evidence exists. The individuals posing as police appear unaware of the transition. They continue as though control remains with them. It does not. The final moments of this phase slow. Movements become smaller. Commands cease briefly. There is a pause. No one speaks. The space between the vehicle and the individuals outside feels wider than before. Postures adjust. The encounter stops expanding, but it does not resolve. This pause is not de-escalation. It is the moment where momentum freezes and consequence begins to form. What happens next will not be determined on the roadside. The footage does not end with resolution. It ends with documentation. What follows is not determined by conversation, posture, or tone, but by review. Once the encounter concludes, control shifts away from the roadside entirely. According to the timeline later reconstructed, the recording becomes the central artifact. It captures the use of emergency lighting. It captures the commands. It captures the duration of the stop. It captures the absence of verified authority. Nothing in the footage suggests confusion. The actions are deliberate and sustained. This is the moment when the incident stops being an encounter and becomes evidence. The stillness that follows is noticeable. The couple remains inside the vehicle. The individuals outside step back. No one rushes. No one raises their voice. The space between them widens. The road noise continues. Time slows. Authority changes hands without announcement. The silence holds for several seconds. No analysis occurs here. No conclusions are drawn on camera. The recording simply preserves the posture, the distance, and the pause. The encounter is complete. When review begins, it follows a predictable sequence. Footage is examined frame by frame. The use of emergency lights is evaluated. The absence of departmental identifiers is noted. The duration of the stop is measured against constitutional standards. From this point forward, the legal margin is no longer narrowing. It is closed. Supervisory review does not apply because there is no legitimate department to supervise. The case moves directly into investigative channels designed to address impersonation and unlawful detention. According to official records later referenced, this transition is procedural rather than discretionary. Another threshold is crossed. Investigators assess whether the individuals presenting as police had any lawful authority to initiate a stop. They examine whether the actions meet statutory definitions of impersonation. They evaluate the detention itself as a completed act. Each finding compounds the exposure. The footage does not require interpretation to establish representation. Emergency lighting, commands, and physical positioning are sufficient. The stop does not rely on intent, it relies on conduct. This distinction matters. Impersonation cases do not hinge on what a person believed. They hinge on what was presented to the public. According to the footage, what was presented was law enforcement authority. Another review phase begins. Legal analysts examine jurisdiction. A traffic stop on a public roadway intersects with federal interests when impersonation occurs. The presence of federal agents inside the vehicle is not necessary to establish illegality, but it sharpens scrutiny. From this point forward, the consequences extend beyond the individuals involved. The couple's professional status remains absent from the footage itself. It emerges later through official confirmation. According to records reviewed during the investigation, both occupants were federal agents acting within their rights as private motorists at the time of the stop. That detail reframes the encounter without altering it. The legality of the stop does not change retroactively. The exposure does. Another review layer follows. Evidence is preserved. Statements are compared to the recording. Inconsistencies are noted. The absence of lawful authority remains central. This was another chance to stop. It had already passed. The investigation does not move quickly. It moves deliberately. Impersonation cases rely on documentation. The footage provides it. The timeline confirms it. The conduct establishes it. No public announcement is made at this stage. According to official records, details of the investigation are not publicly disclosed while review is ongoing. The process unfolds outside the camera's view. What remains visible is the original recording. It does not change. It does not soften. It does not explain. It simply exists. By the time legal review concludes, the roadside interaction has been fully transformed. What began as an attempted assertion of authority has become a compiled evidentiary record. The outcome has not yet been delivered, but the path toward it is fixed. By the time the case reaches its consequence phase, the facts are no longer fluid. According to official filings later reviewed, the central questions are narrow and procedural. Who initiated the stop? What authority was represented? And whether that authority existed. The footage answers the first two. The third is resolved through records. Investigators confirmed that the individuals who initiated the traffic stop were not sworn law enforcement officers. They were not acting under color of any recognized agency. They did not possess statutory authority to conduct a stop on a public roadway. Those findings are not derived from inference. They are established through verification. From this point forward, the legal margin is gone. Under federal law, impersonating a law enforcement officer is a criminal offense. Using that impersonation to detain others elevates the exposure. The statute does not require force. It does not require harm. Representation and action are sufficient. Another consequence threshold is crossed. According to court records later referenced, the investigation moves from review to charging analysis. Prosecutors examine whether the impersonation was sustained, whether emergency equipment was used, and whether the stop constituted an unlawful seizure. The footage provides timestamps. The duration is measurable. The commands are audible. This was no longer a question of judgment. It was a question of elements. The professional status of the couple emerges formally at this stage. According to official confirmation, both individuals were federal agents. That fact does not alter the underlying offense. It reframes its severity. The stop intersected directly with federal personnel performing lawful, private travel. From this point forward, the consequences extend beyond impersonation alone. Charging decisions follow established patterns, counts are evaluated, jurisdiction is confirmed, the case proceeds within the federal system. According to public records, the matter does not resolve at the roadside, it resolves in filings. Another reveal follows. The individuals who initiated the stop are formally charged. The exact counts and sentencing exposure are outlined in court documents. Where specific figures are not publicly disclosed, the records state only that federal charges were pursued. The footage is entered as evidence. There is no dispute over what it shows. There is no competing narrative on camera. The sequence is linear. The actions are clear. The authority is absent. At this stage, reversal is no longer possible. The legal process unfolds without spectacle. Motive is not debated. Intent is not inferred. The charges rest on conduct. The impersonation occurred. The detention occurred. The evidence exists. According to subsequent filings, the case advances through the federal system. Outcomes follow statutory guidelines. Where plea agreements or sentencing details are not publicly disclosed, the record remains sealed on those points. What is disclosed is the outcome's direction. The attempted assertion of false authority results in federal consequences. The stop does not end quietly. It does not disappear. It concludes with formal legal action. For the couple, the matter does not require vindication through argument. The footage accomplished that. Their conduct remained lawful throughout. Their restraint preserved the record. Their authority, though unspoken at the roadside, is recognized in the outcome. For the individuals who initiated the stop, the consequences are not symbolic. They are procedural and enforceable. Federal impersonation is not treated as a minor offense. It is treated as an integrity breach of the legal system itself. The finality of the process does not arrive with emotion. It arrives with documentation. By the time the case closes, the original encounter has been fully reclassified. It is no longer a traffic stop. It is a federal case built on recorded evidence. The resolution of the case does not end with the individuals involved. Its impact moves outward, into systems designed to prevent exactly this kind of violation. According to official records, the footage becomes part of a broader pattern used to identify and deter impersonation activity. False law enforcement stops are not treated as isolated misconduct. They are treated as systemic threats. The authority to detain, command, and restrict movement is among the most powerful functions granted by law. When that authority is imitated without authorization, the legal system responds with rigidity rather than discretion. The aftermath reflects that posture. Training bulletins are updated, public advisories are issued, federal agencies circulate guidance on recognizing impersonation tactics, including the use of emergency lighting, rehearsed commands, and staged posture. These responses are procedural, not rhetorical. They are designed to harden systems against repetition. The footage itself becomes instructional, not because of what it dramatizes, but because of what it documents. A lawful stop has identifiable markers. So does an unlawful one. The absence of verified authority, the lack of dispatcher confirmation, and the persistence of commands without justification form a recognizable pattern. This case reinforces that distinction. Oversight mechanisms also adjust. According to agency statements later released, interagency coordination around impersonation incidents is strengthened. Jurisdictional handoffs are clarified. The pathway from roadside encounter to federal review becomes shorter and more direct. The outcome is not framed as a moral lesson. It is framed as a procedural correction. What remains constant is the footage. It does not rely on testimony. It does not rely on interpretation. It records actions as they occurred. In doing so, it removes ambiguity from the system's response. The couple's role in the aftermath is minimal. Their professional status does not place them at the center of reform. It simply underscores the vulnerability of authority itself. If federal agents can be subjected to impersonated stops, so can anyone else. The law responds accordingly. The final assessment is cold and administrative. The impersonation was documented. The detention was unlawful. The consequences followed established pathways. No discretion altered the outcome. In that sense, The system does not react. It executes. The footage made the violation undeniable. Once recorded, the process became irreversible. Authority returned to where it belongs, with verifiable power, documented procedure, and enforceable law. That is where this case ends.